Going? The time?
4 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Oh man, I got me saying.
No, it's okay. I'll cut it out. We won't do that. Didn't want to miss any gold just in case something happened. I think I went a little too cheap on these microphones.
But you got the opening line. Do you want to open us up?
Yes. So, welcome back to episode 2 of Tylo. That's Take Your Lid Off. My name is Mitch Hines, and this is Mike Coyle, and we are here to give you another excellent episode full of value. Today's topic, setting your why, goal-setting attitude, the very first steps to becoming a master sales guy. Check out this intro song, and thank you for listening.
One time for your mind. One time for your mind.
You can tell it's there. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is. I love it.
Dude, this thing is sweet. I cannot wait to experiment with that thing a little more. So here we are, and this is why, people say you can start with nothing. You can start with just a phone and yourself, and you can learn how to edit volume. But I will say money changes things, Mike, so I appreciate you letting me go out and buy this stuff for our podcast here. We're going to sound professional, smooth. We do have a sign on the way, guys. It's going to be a light-up LED sign behind us. It's going to say, take your lid off. I have the guy possibly designing a little hat that lights up for it, too.
Mm-hmm.
I told him to keep our budget like in the 1,000 to 2,000 area because we don't want to ball out. He tried to hit me with that $5,000. I was like, come on, dude.
He hit you with the high pencil.
He got me with the high pencil.
Got to start somewhere.
And I appreciate it. He was the only guy that answered.
We'll get into negotiations at some point, but you got to start somewhere.
Phone too. So that's a big advantage there.
That is. You got to show up. Honestly, like I feel like right now, I was not blessed with the ability to be able to sing like my whole family.
Oh, really? I can't sing at all.
With this mic in front of me, I feel like I feel like I'm going to have to rock out to something, So you want to get into it?
Yeah. So we were just in the kitchen talking about, I said, what's the first step to really becoming a sales guy? And you said, you set your why. And then you were getting into a story with Marissa, and I don't know where you were. I stopped you so we can get inside the studio.
Okay, good. Yeah. I think about, most of my life, we talked last podcast about the idea about the first sale you got to make is to yourself.
Yep.
You got to look in the mirror and figure those things out. But there's many times in life where you wake up and having the right attitude about things. Life. There's so many things that happen in life, and perspective is unbelievably important. It's how you react to things.
Yeah, perception is reality.
And when I think about that, when every single morning when I woke up, I've been pretty fired up, and I show up at wherever I've been in my career and say, okay, well, I'm gonna be my very, very best today. Mm-hmm. But it all starts with this one thing: is having the right attitude. Right. I've heard this. I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard just wake up on the right side of the bed. Wake up. Yeah. Wake up. Just change your mind. Mm-hmm. And I think that's possible. Right. Everything's possible in my mind. Mm-hmm. But what I think about is, there's real steps to have the great attitude. Oh, yeah. And that's figuring out this one thing. Mm-hmm. Why am I getting up? And why am I living this life? That question, honestly, Mitch, has been asked for so many years. It was like the first human beings on the planet were asking that question. Right. Why am I here?
And it can't just be any answer.
No.
Because, you're not going to be motivated if you just say, well, I'm waking up because I have to, and I have to go pay my bills today.
That's right.
That's not enough.
That's not enough to get you excited. There's so much resistance that you're going to get. It doesn't matter where you're at in life. There's a ton of resistance you're going to get. No matter what career, or no matter what you're doing, there's so much noise coming at us, and you got to be able to push through that. So understanding your purpose or your why, however you'd want to put it, I think it's monumental in being able to have the right attitude. Right. I started this thing many, many years ago where I would wake up and I would write down my goals.
How would you write them down? In the sense of like, in the sense of you already had these things, in the sense of like you want to get these things, or did you speak into existence? Kind of how'd you do that there?
I think the best thing to do is the best way I can put it would be is I am statements.
Okay.
Meaning, I am a father that others admire. That was one of the things I wrote down for decades and decades.
Okay.
When I say decades, a decade. I don't want to over exaggerate. I am a salesperson,
Right.
so I have that
We have
tendency.
to. Yeah. We're not lying, just stretching.
Right. So in my mind, I would write down I am statements.
Right. So I am
A multimillionaire.
Okay. See, that's why we had
Before I was ever had any success
before
in
you
that.
had thousands, that's what you set your mind.
100%. So what I would do, so I think about like this. Let's break it down to reduce to the ridiculous. That's a sales technique, right? Meaning I wake up out of bed, and some people wake up out of bed and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm tired. I'm so tired." And what they'll also do is many people, and not that I haven't done this also, but most days I don't do this. I do what I'm about to get into, is wake up and they just start complaining about what's happening in life.
They complain.
Yeah, right. Which is, you got to think about where your head is. Like, how can your attitude be right if you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm tired," and not that I've not been tired or I'm not going to be tired again.
Right.
So I would immediately wake up and start writing these I am statements.
Okay.
And so as I'm getting in the shower, my attitude's not exactly where it needs to be. I'm not like ready to go take on the world.
Right.
On the way down here,
I don't think anybody is.
So I was telling you the story with Marissa. Like, I was on my way down here. We were driving down. We were actually shopping. I'm headed to New York for this $1 million club that I hit for our company with our CEO.
$1 million club.
And so we did a shopping spree.
Marcus Lemonis. If you haven't heard of him, by the way, what's his show called?
The Prophet.
The Prophet. Go Prophet over there. Marcus on, I think, NBC or whatever.
So he's going to be there. We're going to get to hang out. We're doing a shopping spree, but I'm going to Broadway. I don't know if they'll let me in, but if they let me in, I'm going to go.
Why would they let you in?
Well,
do you not feel like you're Broadway material?
I've never been to Broadway.
Yeah, neither have I.
And I don't know that. Not that I'll enjoy it. I enjoy many things, but anyway. So as we're driving down, I wasn't feeling we were in traffic. I was actually a little tired, which it doesn't happen very often. And so I got to start thinking about how big we can make this.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is going to be huge, right? So in my mind, how big can we make this? So I would do those same things and get my attitude right. And I started with this, understanding what my purpose is or what my why is. Why am I getting out of bed? Why am I going to go do what I'm going to go do?
Right.
And that's the very first thing I can tell anybody, at least in my mind, is understand what my purpose is, understand what my why is, and why am I going to do this? And I start to get ignited. I start to get excited. Think about this just for a minute. Everybody's met somebody, and they at some point or another, and they've talked about. You can see when somebody starts talking about certain things, and they start to light up.
Yes. Yeah.
They start to light up, and when they start to light up, you can tell there's some gift that they have, and there's really something that we all have been given, which is some gift, and when we have that, we start getting excited.
Right.
And what is that? Why is that? And if you can define that, and you got to go through the process of defining that, maybe that's something we can talk about one day, but you need to define that, what that is. And once you're ignited, now you start to have this attitude about okay, it's time for me to go get that today. Okay. And without that, you go into sales or whatever career you're in, and you don't have that ability to be able to push through those things. If you're a teacher and if you don't have your why defined, you go and you're dealing with some challenge in school or a curriculum, or it could be anything, and you have to be. And it's hard to not quit on that.
Right. That brings up a good point. Well, what can you do if you're not really, you don't know? What if you don't know what your I imagine the people that are going to listen to the show are going to be 18 to 36-year-old, probably 65% male, if I had to guess, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what our demographic was in the first episode. So let's say you're 18 years old, you're in college, 19, you know it's not for you, but you're living under your parents' roof. Your parents come from a generation of not wealth, we'll say maybe your parents together make 60 grand, and the only thing they ever wanted you to do your whole life was just go to school to get an education because they didn't get to do that. But you think maybe you don't know what it is, but you can tell you've got this gift, and maybe you can tell because people open up to you. You know, you're that guy. I mean, I don't know. I'm that guy that people just open up to. I mean, I'm like a book. You know, people. Yeah. Or I'm the book opener. I guess I'm like a librarian. I'm opening these books of people's minds. So before I got into sales, I just understood I had this gift of communication. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what that would lead to a career, but I didn't know that. But I wasn't at 18 years old. I don't think I was ready to. I didn't think I understood that I can set those big of a goals. But I still took a jump to get into the right career field. So what do you tell yourself there?
I think you have to look at, like, when you go back to like your childhood. Mm-hmm. If I were to ask any child, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Astronaut.
I would ask them that way in a super high voice, because I want to be,
They're not going to say Quiznos sub maker. Right. They're going to say like astronaut. Right.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Right, massive.
It's a big thing. Like there's this way that we get changed by the world, by all the stuff that compresses our thoughts. And I think you have to go back and say, okay, man, like what did I give up on? And I think you have to understand the idea that to have everything you want in life is hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
You have to get, and I think, but here's the reality, is to not have everything you want in life, and to wake up and try to go paycheck to paycheck, or whatever those things might be that are challenged by people, like that's hard too.
Right.
So you got to choose your hard.
Yeah, it's. I heard a quote. I think it might have been even Henry Ford. It's just as easy to be broke as it is to be rich. Yeah. Or just as hard to be broke. They said it both ways. It's just as easy. It's also just as hard.
Yeah.
Choose your hard.
Yeah. So you choose that. Like, so you got to go back and say, okay, like what was, what were, in my mind, like when I think back to as a little boy, like I remember watching, like, honestly, like this is gonna date me to some degree, but I would watch like the Lone Ranger and Tonto.
Oh yeah, my guys watched. This is gonna date you a little bit. My grandma always had the Lone Ranger on.
I'm still trying to. I just went to this concert this weekend. It was a country concert,
which I opted out of last minute.
You did.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You would have had a good time.
I was sleepy.
Yeah, I was too, but I put a cowboy hat on, and I'm still trying to be the Lone Ranger. And my point is that, like, we had this big thing, and life happens,
right?
And then we're told a lot of things.
So is it life though? Is it like our parents and our teachers saying, no? Like, I was the kid who got in trouble for like talking in class and like negotiating. I remember, like, I would negotiate kids out of their books or out of their, like, what are those things called you play with as a kid? Is it dominoes with they're white and black, and you can, like, right, those are called dominoes.
Yeah, right? Dominoes. I think you're on it.
Yeah, so we would play with those, and we would build little houses out of them, and I would negotiate certain numbers, like.
Did you sing like 7-11? Were you singing that kind of
thing?
No,
but I would get in trouble a lot for talking. Okay. So yeah. But I was just doing what I was good at, and like I love to. I don't know if it was to be the center of attention or love to make friends, but like, there's not a curriculum on how to be social. Mm-mm. Did you ever go through a class like that?
No, honestly, like I wasn't social at all until I was probably 13 years old. Okay. I was raised in a home that, like, my brother was this incredibly talented person. Okay. And it just kind of changed for me when I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and so I don't even know that I was super social. You know what I did? I would play in my room and pretend like I was the Lone Ranger or Luke Skywalker, and I would play men. Right,
I was a Lone Ranger at home, but at school I get made fun of, so I kind of used like comedy to get myself out of being made fun of. Like I was wearing the Skechers, kids had on the Jordans. Yeah, right. So I'm like, hey, It ain't easy.
That's definitely-
It ain't easy wearing these Skechers, baby.
That's good.
And they were more comfortable than the Jordans. What people don't know.
That's a really great talent that you have. I think it's not easy. I was watching Cocktails last night with Tom Cruise, and at one point or another, he was trying to hit on this girl at the bar, or there was a girl at the bar, and he was hitting on her, and she was kind of hitting on him, and she shot him down. And he handled it with like such kid gloves, but you could tell like he stayed in the clothes, and it was incredible. But that's another segment also that we might be able to do, but how to stay in the clothes. But getting back to the idea of what we're taught, I think the idea is, I think a lot of people are no different than any of us. They run, our parents and their grandparents, they all run into the same thing. And which is they go after some life, they have big dreams, and at some point they give up on them. Right. Because of whatever reason. Right. And
just lack of information has to be the biggest reason.
It can be. I think it's lack of information. It also can be people that love you. You
take advice because you think that because they know you and it's because it's out of love, and you don't know any better, that it's the right advice is what you're kind of getting at.
It can be. So like my mom, that's getting back to what we were saying on the way, Marissa and I were talking. If I were to call my mom today, my mom is an incredible woman. Mom, when you check in on here, that's the truth. Yeah. Got an incredible person. She's been an incredible mom to me my whole life. I just was on the phone with her tonight. This afternoon. But if I told her that I was going to move to France and start a new business, and I was leaving this whole country behind, and this is what I was going to do because I had some big dream, I know that it wouldn't be about, it could be lack of information, but it would be, for her, it would be more about worry.
Right.
And
you don't know the language. What are you going to do when you get out there? Stuff like that.
Whatever it might be.
Right.
And I think so, typically speaking, I think that's what we run into. Okay. So for us to have that big think that we're talking about and really define what our purpose is, right, we got to go back and we have to say to ourselves, okay, what is it I want to accomplish in life? Like what, when we tap into our gift, whatever that it might be. And I think the way to understand how to tap into that gift is to say, okay, what do I get excited about? When I light up, I'll just give you an example. Like, for you as an example, this would be a perfect example. You're great at sales. You're incredible. Okay. I mean, you have an unbelievable talent for that. And that goes back to some of the things you were just talking about. But when I hear you light up, it's when we talk about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or when you talk about your music.
I can't get this off my mind.
But you light up. Like what is, because your why is to talk to you and for somebody, however many viewers that we end up getting, I'm sure there'll be.
It's going to be massive. Wait till you hear the plan.
A number that I can't even think about.
Wait till you hear my brand plan I have, which is going to be, we'll talk about that later, but that's going to be between us. But
good.
It's massive.
Yeah.
The idea I've got.
I assure you, I will be impressed by it. But what I will say though is that's like you. That's how you identify what your purpose is, what your why is. And then from there, you have to find a vehicle that will allow you to be able to deliver that. Yep. And in a case like yours, like your music is at your heart, man.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
However, that there's some steps you got to take to be able to actually make that happen in that part of your life.
Right.
But in order to get to that part of your life, you're going to be doing some things you don't necessarily love.
Yeah, or want to do. Yeah. Yep.
That goes back to my original point about attitude and perspective. Like when I first started selling, it was in 1998. I'm dating myself a little bit.
I was 3.
And I wasn't a whole lot older. I was fresh out of college.
So were you 20 or 21?
I was 20 when I started.
Okay, yep.
And I didn't love it necessarily. Honestly,
who does?
I remember thinking, like, the last, 3 or 4 months before that, like, I had my baseball cap on backwards, was going to football practice, and figuring out where the next party was going to be.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm driving down to this place and I got to try to talk people into doing some stuff.
Right.
I didn't even know what it was. They're like, hey, that's what you're selling out there. I've never been in one.
Right.
But what I found was a vehicle that was really, really the ability to be able to actually, at that time, my purpose was a little different. I've changed over time. I didn't really even understand it. I can think back and there was times in my life I was a leader, but I would go back. If I went back to those times, it was about I am not going to fall. I'm not going to let these things in my life that have, that some of them were actual things that I did. I mean, I put myself in some of the positions I was in, but I wasn't going to let that define me. And what I was going to do was figure out how to have a really, really good life. I didn't know what that even meant.
Right.
I just knew that I wasn't going to live like I did when I was young.
Right.
And so I think so it was to provide for the family that I had. I mean, that was my purpose.
Right.
And so as I've gotten older, I've realized okay, there's more to that for me, and there's more people that I want to have an impact on, and so but those things, when you start talking about those, you got to write them down and what they are, and what they mean to you, and you got to actually write them. 3% of the entire world. Now, this was a stat. Stats are whatever, but I'm just based on my experience. That makes sense to me too.
3% of the people you've met. I mean, you can probably do that, and it's realistic. I know you're right to say,
actually have goals, and less of those people actually write them down. So you got to make them real to yourself, okay? So I think when you think about that, you're actually write those down, it starts to change your attitude. I think the best way I can put it is this. You're going to go on vacation. The best vacation you can think of.
Okay.
You're going to go on vacation.
I would go to the Maldives. I haven't been there, but I've been to the Bahamas a couple of times. So
yeah, that's a great place. I love the Caribbean. It's one of my favorite things. I will have palm trees. That's something I've wrote down for my life. I live like I'm on vacation. That's another example of an I am statement, or I will. Yeah, so when I think about that, going back to what I was saying, vacation, think about a normal night, you go to bed and you're going to go to work the next day. Right. Whatever it is you do, it doesn't matter. Most of us, we're not super excited about that. So we just wake up in the morning and whatever it is our routine is, hopefully there's a routine, and then you go to work and you do what you do, right? Think about you're going on the best vacation of your life.
Okay, I'm thinking about it.
And you're about to go to bed.
Okay.
You're packing.
It's the night before, okay.
The night before.
Okay.
How are you sleeping?
Probably not that well, man. It's going to take me a minute to fall asleep. I'm going to be excited.
Pumped.
Yeah,
you're
I'm jacked up.
jacked.
My eyelids are going to be glued and open.
You're thinking about it. You're going to bed thinking about the coconut drink you're going to have, or whatever it is. That's what I'm talking about. Now, of course, you can't have a lot of that if you don't figure out what your purpose or why is. But I'm using that as an example for a mind shift to that's what you got to do. So when you write down a goal, and if you want to have the right attitude, you're going to push through the resistance. Okay, I'm just going to say to myself, I want to think like that.
Right.
Imagine when you wake up in the morning, you're showering, you're washing your hair, and you just wrote down some big goals.
Lofty, massive.
Or something that's seems almost unachievable. Right. But you start doing that all the time, and you start actually taking your mind there, and things start to happen for you in that way. And there's more to what we'll need to do to be able to be a great salesperson, and to be a great anything, really. I think a lot of the things that apply to sales apply to any part of life. But those things are what will get you excited.
Yes.
And that's how you actually get the right attitude.
Right.
Is you got to have
enough. That's how you go to a job you don't necessarily love, too, at first. For example, no one wakes up and says, maybe one person at our job wakes up and says, I love selling RVs.
Right. Oh no!
Maybe that. You're right. So
I love the idea of what we do and what we.
Helping the people.
Yeah, I love the idea of helping people. I love the idea of what the family time that people
Right,
get,
yeah.
or whatever it might be, even the solo time that
Right.
they get. I love that idea, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not not that.
So where I think people get confused about this goal idea and like, oh, well, I'm not in my dream job, blah, 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 whatever that may mean, is that there's goals and then there's targets. Right. So the goal is, I am a multimillionaire. Right. Speaking into I am a musician. I own a storage business that's 10 acres where I house over 500 RVs that pulls in $500,000 a year. That's one of my goals right now. And then my target would be, okay, now I'm at work. Well, I need to make 50 phone calls, or I need to get 3 people on paper.
Yeah, there's a battle plan. Yeah.
And those should be achievable targets versus your goals you can accomplish in a day.
Yeah.
But your targets you should be able to accomplish in the day.
Yeah, there's the big thing. So like a lot of people would say, I've heard this before, is your actual result goals, which would be, I'm a multimillionaire. I am at 40 years old. I'm in I'm in the top 3% of fit people in the world, or whatever it might be. Like whatever it is, I'm the top artist in all of the United States. If you're an artist or something like that.
Maybe you want to be the best tattoo artist. Maybe you want to be the best construction guy. Maybe you want to be the best plumber. This is not limited to someone selling the metal like we are, or someone who's doing something crazy like a podcast. You could be right now a plumber and you want to increase your business by 40 grand this year. We're not limiting anything here.
Same thought process. Then there's action goals.
Right. Okay.
Which are our daily battle plan, basically. Like, a really easy thing that resonates with most people is like a weight loss. Okay. So like, I'm 30 years old, and at 32, I want to be, or I will be, this body fat percentage, or whatever you'd want to look at. So the battle plan for that day, or the action plan, or the action goals would be what you need to do specifically that day that will help you achieve that. And that's what you got to go through the process. But we're talking about how are you great at anything? In my mind, that's the first step. Is I got to think to myself, okay, my attitude and how do I actually get myself excited enough to work through all the resistance. Think about anybody in this life has a thought and they're excited about something, and you get punched in the mouth. Right. Oh yeah. When you get to work, or you get to your, you go on a date, I'm super excited to meet this person. I go on a date and I get there like, that didn't go like as planned. Right. So you got to respond to that. That's the resistance that we all get. Right. So what do? How do I respond to that? Well, am I thinking big enough to know, like, I am going to experience love like the best romantic movie you can ever experience in your life. Whatever it is your goal is to that, like, you got to be thinking big enough. Right. That's the first step. Right. And sometimes when we set a goal, we don't know what God, or whatever you believe in, I believe in God, has in store for you to get there, right? So in 2021, I set my goal. My main goal was, hey, I want to become the person that I've always wanted to become. Right. So to me, I thought that meant I was going to sell the most RVs I've ever sold in a year. Right. So last year I sold 160 RVs. This year I've only sold 90. But last year I didn't grow spiritually. I didn't grow mentally. I didn't really grow in any other area. This year I kind of found out that I had some like depressive things I had to work through to kind of climb out of. Yeah. I realized that I wasn't focusing on my spirituality like I should. I realized I wasn't focusing on my wife like I should. So I leveled up in all 4 areas. Those 4 areas, and my sales went down a little bit. But when I look at the year as a whole, I was beating myself up. Man, I'm getting beat by people at work that would never usually beat me. Maybe I made less money than I could have. But when I take a step back and I look at, well, wait a minute. I think you just set yourself up for a massive life. Is how I feel. And I got these other things right. Yeah. Because my career was already right. If that makes sense. I was already making good money. 100%. So it was weird. And even though I sold less units, I still made the same money as last year. So I started beating myself up, and I was like, this and that. But then I realized, well, hang on, dude, you got to take a step back and maybe even pat yourself on the back and be patient, because you've grown this year more than I've seen you grow in the other 26 years total. Look, Mitch, what you're saying resonates with, I think, anybody that would be listening, myself. This life is all a mind game. It is. It's how we respond to things. We're going to go, I know myself, you, or anybody listening, like we go through seasons of life. And part of that is, we have areas of focus and I really, there's a certain point, if you're doing the things that we'll be talking about, that we're talking about right now, you'll get back to where all of it.
Yeah. Oh, I know I will.
And I believe that's the case. Like when I look at goal setting and really trying to create the right life that I want, and that's really what it's about. It's not what I want isn't what you might want or what you might want.
Right.
It's about what we all want.
Right.
But we all know this. If I were to ask you or anybody listening or anybody that I ever meet, is there more for you? Are you reaching your potential?
Right.
I don't know if anybody I've ever met that would ever say anything that, no,
right.
There's more for me. Yes, I have more potential. I think everybody says that. And when I think about that, I think that comes down to what you're talking about. Like there's this part of you that you don't want to deny, which is I have this amazing amount of potential. And that changes as we go along in life. And I think if you're tuned into that on a daily basis, and the way to tune into that is to wake up in the morning, and honestly at night is a great way to do it. Vote 2 times a day and write it down and get it and put the thoughts down, because the only way that's going to be the case that you're ever going to hit any area of life that you want to do is that you actually look at it. I mean, we're going to get into a lot of things over time, so we can't, we wouldn't be able to cover every part of that today. But what we could cover is the idea that we all know. I think you, anybody listening, that there is something more for us, and we got to tap into that.
Yep.
And the way to do that is to sit down and actually look at it.
If you think you have more potential than what you're currently operating at, go ahead and like this video, leave a comment.
That's right. I like that. And you should.
You really should. You want this stuff in your feed, because there's a lot of stuff out there that, and I would say this about, if someone else is doing the same thing that we're trying to do right now, I'd give them the same credit, because, I'll tell you something kind of crazy going on a side story. So Facebook's algorithm is so advanced that if you're frowning while looking at your phone, it's actually going to show you more negative content. And if you're smiling while looking at your phone, it's going to show you, oh, dude, it's crazy. It's going to show you more positive content.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, honestly.
So, and when you're looking at 3-second images all day long, and you're scrolling through, you can scroll through 1,000 images in less than a minute now. That stuff is leaving impressions on your subconscious, and it's changing the way you operate and the way you think. And so if you have depression, I want you to ask yourself, how often are you on your phone per day? And then just realize that if you are on your phone all day with depression, you're actually feeding yourself more things to be depressed about. Versus if you were to smile while on your phone, it's literally going to show you the content that's going to make you smile more. Same thing if you like and comment on this video, the algorithm is going to show you more stuff like this, not even from us. It's going to show you more stuff like this to get your mind right. Because I listen to something motivational every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to. I just have to. I mean, I'm not, people say, Mitch, you're so positive, Mitch, you're this, Mitch, you're upbeat. Well, I'm not upbeat because I wake up upbeat. I choose to get there. And the days that I don't, I suffer. The days the days I forget to sell myself, dude, people at work ask me what's wrong with you. Which makes me even more mad. Because there's nothing wrong.
It just throws you down.
Oh, yeah. Just like, dude, what's wrong with you today? Yeah. Dude, who are you to even tell me what I'm thinking about? I start getting all negative. I start getting entitled. Versus, if I'm in a good mood, people are like, Mitch, you're chipper today. I'm like, that makes you feel good. When people call you chipper, or people say your attitude is great, or your hair looks good, or Mitch, you look handsome today, those things make you feel good. And we have the power to make ourselves feel good, but just by the way we look at our cell phones.
Oh, that's incredible. That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I was watching some show not long ago about Facebook and like the like button itself. The person that invented the like button was talking about how like the attention that we get from it and that sort of thing, which, I get part of that, but the idea that they created that for a reason, as opposed to when you think about that, there's only one person that matters. People matter in my life that I love, but there's only really, when I get to the end, like, can I look in the mirror and am I happy with the person that I see? And the only way that I can be happy with the person I see is that I go after my dreams and aspirations, and I go after those things. So like when you think about Facebook's, I mean, there's an incredible part of it, you know, like, but there's also a part of it that is like the data that we get from there.
On the way.
And here's what I think about when you tell me that, Mitch, is we get what we focus on. We get in this life, we will get what we focus on. And I've experienced personally the good and bad of that. I mean, you know, there's been times in my life where I wasn't focused on the right things.
Trust me, I know.
And I'm focused on something that's not super good.
Right.
You know, and I go there. Our mind goes there, so we get what we focus on.
Oh yeah. And
so that's what this is all about. Like
it finds a way.
We're actually going. That's why you're actually writing down things that are big. Here, let me just challenge anybody that's listening to when you're actually writing these things down.
This is TYLO challenge number 1.
This is a challenge, and it's difficult to do. Is to not question this big thought. Like, you got to ask yourself, like, you know, I'll just use money as an example. This is go for anything. I want to have $10 million in the bank, or I want to have $1,000 in the bank. Which one do you want?
10 million, easy.
That's a big thought.
Right.
I think most people that I've met in my lifetime, when I say those two things, they immediately start thinking about how that's not going to happen.
Or how it could never happen.
How it could never happen.
Right, like I can never see myself amassing $10 million. And then they do things like blame rich people and get mad at them.
That can happen. But what I will say is that when I say those things out loud, it almost seems like wild. Or like, how about this? Let's just use like health or fitness. At 50 years old, I'll be under 10% body fat, and I will be in better shape than anybody that's under 30. I know that sounds crazy, right? If I said, that's a wild statement. Right. That's a wild thought.
Right.
But what happens in those moments is we start thinking, because we've been told it, all these things we've learned over the years, from people that we love, from people that we've heard, from news, from Facebook, from any of these things that all the noise tells us that can't happen.
Right.
So my challenge is this. Really sit down and try that. Try to write down, like, think back to when you were young, or when you were, whatever it was, like you were writing your first drawing, that when you were, you know, 5, 6 years old, or however, you know, long back you can remember. And what did I really want? Like, I am this incredible artist that is well known across the world. Like, that's a wild thought.
Very wild.
Right? Or I am a chef that is, I'm a 2-star Michelin chef in Manhattan. Like, that seems wild.
Right.
But what most of us do in that moment is we say, okay, well, wait a minute. I got this, I got that, I got this. That's not, and that's the challenge that we have. So the challenge is sit down and you write it down. And I'll just give you an example of this. And most of the time when you write stuff down, you're not going to, based on our own beliefs and our learning and or whatever it might be, we're not going to write things. We're going to actually think short about what even if you really go into it with thinking, I'm going to think big, we're going to fall short of what we actually can, because we change and we grow and we evolve. So when I think back to the recession of 2008, that's probably the time I doubled down on this concept we're talking about. And when I started writing goals down, I hit many of those. A couple of them just happened last year.
So 13 years later, he's been writing these same goals. I mean, the level of patience you have to have. For the last 400 days, I wrote down a goal that just came true, is I want to have a podcast with Mike.
Yeah, that's incredible.
400
Here we are.
days or so of writing that goal. I mean, I missed maybe a day a week or so, on average, if I'm being honest. But dude, I mean, when I wrote down goals, it was like go to heaven, make my wife happy, start a podcast with Mike. I mean, that's.
I'm glad to be part of that.
I'm not even joking. I mean, that's what you asked my wife. She was like, when we finally started getting, when she knew, after we ordered the equipment, she knew we were going to take it seriously. And that's why I like money, because once you spend money, you do get committed to stuff. And she was like, I think you should do nothing else except work at work and then focus on that podcast. Like maybe put your music to the side a little bit, put your own podcast to the side and go all in on that, because that can really open up some massive doors. I was like, girl, I got 400 days of notebooks that I've already been, everything you're thinking of, I've been dreaming of. And so it's true.
So goal number 2 is find a partner like Maddie.
Oh, dude, she's incredible. Good luck, dude. Let me know if you find her. You can't even find them on the black market.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a bad joke. I'm gonna edit that out.
Well, yeah, that's an edit. But here's that is a good goal to have, though. Yeah. I think what you're writing down is really good, but like in my mind, you have to question, like, really, like if I'm saying something I really want in life, but then immediately I'm starting to think why I can't accomplish that.
The hows.
That's, you got to eliminate that from the goal setting, because like when you're really doing that, I want to try to create the best attitude for myself. Right. It's got to be this thing. It's got to be something big enough to get me excited.
Yeah.
And in the long term thing, like we're talking about. Here's the reality. When I wrote those things down, I hit them. The first thing I thought when I hit some of those things, especially the ones I just hit that took that long, was exactly what I'm saying.
Wish I would have thought bigger.
Yes, 100%. But what I will say then is it was big for me. Then,
yeah.
Which is good.
That's important. When I told you I wanted to make 80 grand, it seemed impossible.
I can tell you this. When it comes to goal setting, I'd rather come short of a huge, massive, think big goal than I would come short of something that wasn't an average or below average goal.
I'd rather come short of a massive goal than hit an average goal.
And I've missed many goals in my career. Right. So that same goal I wrote down, I was writing down as if I would accomplish this, right? I am accomplishing this.
Right.
I didn't accomplish it for many, many years.
Many.
But I can tell you this,
how many opportunities did you have to give up?
Many. So as an example, one would be income. Incrementally, I grew that every year. There's a quote, Michelangelo, and I'm probably going to chop it up, but he talks about, shooting for the moon. He'd rather fall short of the moon than the stars. You probably have to look it up. But,
I will right now.
Because I'd rather shoot for much higher and fall a little bit short and hit the stars than I would actually shoot for the stars and fall way short of the stars. Because, look, here's something we all have to understand.
I'm not connected to the internet. I'm going to use my...
Typically speak, I think a lot of people, when I see somebody that's in any area of life that is reaching some level of success more than I am.
I don't have your Wi-Fi. I can't look it up. My phone's using to record right now.
When I see somebody that what I was saying as you were looking that up, we'll have to look it up. Yeah. The Michelangelo quote, look it up, Google it.
You want to take a break? Get the Wi-Fi put on there real quick so I can look stuff up.
Yeah, okay.
And we're back. This is live, coming to you from the studio. I've got us recording. Yep, awesome. And so the quote that before we took our quick break, and this podcast is sponsored by Hindsight, the beat maker and producer for the show, aka me. We also have another sponsor incoming, a detailing company, which I'll get you guys more information next week on that. Another sponsor. My little brother is going to clean our cars for free. Details if we give the show a shout out. I just forget his name of his company.
Okay, perfect.
So
thank you, Hindsight.
Yeah, we got free car washes coming, details coming too.
Yeah, I need it.
Yeah, me too. So Michelangelo, the quote was, "The greatest danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark."
At the break we were talking also about, and I heard this before, is that, actually hell would be, in the afterlife, meeting the person that you were supposed to be.
Right, like what you could have became.
What you could have become.
Mm-hmm. And seeing that flash before your eyes, right?
And realizing that you never even tried to be that person.
Never even tried, it's sad.
And heaven would be, you get to the afterlife and you meet the person that you're supposed to be.
Right, and it's you.
And you actually tried and you gave it every shot you could to be that person. I think that's an incredible thing.
Right.
And it really, that resonates with me when I hear about the goals, because we've all fallen short.
We sure have.
We all fall short in some way or another, and we've all set a goal. We've like wanted to win the big game, and we didn't win. So why not shoot it for we're the number one team in the country? And if you fall short of being number one in the country, but you end up number 10, as opposed to just winning the conference, you did way better.
Right.
I want to earn $10 million a year. Or I earn $10 million a year. That'd be a better way to say it.
It's so hard too. That's the hardest thing, is to say those things in that present tense. That present tense means a lot to your subconscious. Like when you say I am versus I want to become. Like that's a lot of work for your. Like when you say I want to, your body starts thinking of that how versus I am. You already are. And then what happens when you say I am, and this just comes back to your reticular activating system, RAS, and you taught me this, but I was in church, what's today? Today's Monday, so I was in church Sunday, and our preacher was talking about, Jesus says to meditate upon things that are pure, good, basically all the things that are opposite of anxiety, right? Meditate upon those things. And I rose my hand. I said, well, that's one thing that science and God agree on, is focusing on things that you want in real time, right? So even though the storm is here, if you meditate on peace, you're going to feel peace. It's right there. It's available to you.
Your mind, you get what you focus on.
Right. And I want to suggest one thing before we move on about setting goals. There's a lot of things, a lot of people in a lot of different stages, and if you're the stage that we're in, what was that? Was that part of the stage that we're in is we know what goals we want to hit, and yeah, we add new goals to that from time to time, but a lot of my goals have been kind of the same for a little bit, and that's because I know what I want, and it's quite hard to achieve. But if you're in that stage where you just have no idea what you want to do, you're probably between the ages 18 and 24, if I had to guess, but if you're 50, this still applies to you, is I want you to write down 10 things that you could possibly, and don't let your current talent level, don't let your current belief get your way, write down 10 things that you believe you have a 1% shot of being able to do. And then I want you to take that 10 thing and narrow it down to 5, and then I want you to give each of those 5 things 20 hours of your time. So if it's music production, and I'm talking 20 hours of you actually making the music, not watching the YouTube videos. I'm talking, you set a timer and you got 1 hour in today, okay? And total that up till you get to 20 hours. And there's a TED Talk about the 20-hour rule. Just look up 20-hour rule. This is not something I'm making up. This is real for you to look up right now after you watch this video. Don't skip my video. But do 20 hours of the thing. And then at the end of the 20 hours, you're going to know if you want to continue. That's 4 hours a day for 5 days. That's 10 days, 2 hours a day. So if it's making music, I knew when I hit my 20 hours, I'm going to do this forever. Even if I never become a famous musician, a successful musician, my goal with music when I first started making it is I want to make a song that I enjoy. Because that's all that mattered to me was I went to this festival, Electric Forest, one of the biggest electronic festivals in the United States, and I was in tears at the end of the festival, not because of how beautiful the music was and how beautiful the people were. Man, I was in tears because for the very first time in my life, I actually saw something that really got me excited.
That's awesome.
And so I was like, okay, well, what's next? And if you start thinking of, well, how do I make the noises that my favorite artists are making, dude, you're just going to get discouraged and you're going to quit. But if you focus on, let me get 20 hours in and see where I'm at, you're going to blow yourself away. You're going to be showing your friends your beats and they're going to be like, yo, this sucks, but you're going to be jacked about it. And because 20 hours ago, you didn't even know how to make a beat. You didn't even know what program you were going to use. And now all of a sudden, out of your friend group, you're the audio expert because no one else has 20 hours in. Same thing for sales. I dropped out of college. My dad said, what's your plan? I said, I don't know. I went and did some Googling and I said, what do employers value more than a degree? And the number one answer that showed up was 1 year of cold calling business to business. That equals a master's degree to most people. And I've got some crazy job offers just off of that. And so I did a year of cold calling and I hated every single minute of it. But you know what? It set me up for life. Dude, I've got no problem walking into a business. Let's say the worst thing imagined happened and I lost everything. Let's say I lost my house in a fire. My spouse was there in the fire, my dog and my cat, and I lost everything. I'm down to zero. I've got no love. I've got no family. Dude, I'm confident in my ability to go out there and find love again. I'm confident in my ability to go out there and find the right people again. I'm confident in my ability to go out there and find the money. And I wasn't that confident at 18, 19, 20, or even 25. I just now got that confidence, I feel like, but only because I did the first 20 hours of each thing.
I like it. That's a great strategy.
And it's not a lot of time wasted. You waste 20 hours playing the piano and you hate it? Okay, you wasted 1 day of your life.
Do you know what I think about when you're saying that? Is the fear that we have in conquering that. Like, you got to go to it.
Yeah.
Like, think about anybody in life that has had a legacy. Think about anybody you can think of. Think about Obama, or you think about Oprah, or you think about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. These people, they went after their life.
They sure did.
With what in their passion, right? When you think about those people, though, they had to move through. They had to take a chance. They had to bet on themselves. Right. They had to conquer these things that we all experience.
Oh yeah.
And when you got to move to that. You got to
believe.
Like, if I woke up and I'm starting to write down my goals, because things will happen when you start to write those down. Like the 10 things you're talking about. If you were to do that over and over again, as you change and evolve, you'll start writing down different things.
Or subcategories of the thing, and you'll start diving into a niche or whatever,
Right. And so what happens, though, is that we have this built-in mechanism in our brain that says that can't happen. And I know this for sure, that anybody that's ever had that type of legacy or any success that you've had or that I've had, it never comes to and finds me comfy in my jammies sitting on in the watching TV at night. Not that you shouldn't watch TV or you shouldn't get in comfy jammies. It's just understanding the idea that I got to go face those things.
Right.
Like, that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to go do something that is like, if I do it, I might not be good at it.
And you're going to be uncomfortable, and you're supposed to be.
That is the best thing you could do.
It's the best indicator that you're on the right path.
It is, and you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And there's many things in my career. As an example, I was. If I think back to like 2014 when we moved over here to Indianapolis, I was running a RV dealership as a sales manager at a really big one, Tom Raper. A lot of people have heard of it.
If you've not heard of it, at one point they were the biggest RV dealer in the entire country.
And I decided that I got recruited by this company that we're with now, Camping World.
C-Dub.
And hey, shout out.
GRW. Basically one of our sponsors, if you think about it.
Yeah, that is.
I wouldn't be here without them.
And I remember at that time I was earning probably top 3% in the world for financially. I was home more often than I'd ever been. That our industry allows for that a little more. And in that moment, I was looking around, and I had a lot of great people around me, but they weren't, in my mind, the level that I was at that point in that specific career. And I was happy with everything, but just wasn't. I felt super comfortable. And that's the moment. So as I got recruited, I had to pack up my whole family, move to Indianapolis.
Right. From Ohio.
So Ohio to Indianapolis. So it was a major move, but I was moving my kids' schools.
Right. How old was Logan?
He was a sophomore in high school that year.
If you're anything like me or Logan, I went to 3 different high schools. Man, my parents moved me around like a pet rat.
Yeah. That was a big move that we made.
It's tough.
But at that time, I was in a non-compete clause with Tom Raper.
Right.
So I knew that
the Camping World, right?
What's that?
You can't go to a competitive dealer, or
I couldn't go. Yeah. So it was within the mile radius. So I got sued. I had a cease and desist waiting on me. I knew they were going to do it. So I had to pack up for 2 months while my family was living in a hotel before we bought. So I had a mortgage in Ohio, but was buying a house here in Indianapolis.
That's 2 bargains.
And I had to move out. I had to go and stay in a suburban, like a extended stay, for 2 full months.
So was the clause only 60 days that you couldn't do it, or
no? We ended up.
Did they buy the store for you? They won't tell you it was for you, but you know it was for you.
Well, I was in one of the meetings. They ended up buying
bought the store, guys. We bought a whole store. $25 million just so this man can come to GRW.
Well, they were going to pay a big significant fee to buy me out of it, but the reason I'm telling the story is not that as much as this is cool. It was a really uncomfortable moment. But I knew it was time for me to move.
Right.
I knew it was time for me to get out of the comfort zone. I was actually taking less salary to move over here.
It was a chance, but because they gave you the potential, like if you do well, you're basically get paid based off how well you do, right?
Well, I looked at the data. I knew what we could do. I felt like I knew what we could do. It wasn't nearly the size store, or at least from a volume or revenue perspective, as it was where I was at Tom Raper, but I knew the market. You know, I competed in it, I studied it, I looked at it, I knew the manufacturers, and I felt like if I could put what we do in place, we can make it more. But it was a big bet and a tough sell, by the way. That's not an easy sell. Hey, we're gonna get sued, love, come, and we're gonna move over here, and
I'm not gonna make any money for 60 days.
Yeah, it's gonna be really challenging.
Yeah, we're gonna put kids in different schools.
Hey, by the way, do you want to stay in the hotel for 2 months before I get back?
Right.
Yeah, you mean that was a tough sell.
If we can call Jeff Mayfair right now and ask him how the hotel stays are going.
But let me just go back to this
and it's
point.
It's not fun.
Go back to the original point.
Go back to it.
That was 2014. I knew for me to get to the level I wanted to be at, whether it be from a leadership perspective, from I wanted my boys to see that like where I came from could be a whole lot more. I had to bet on myself and take a chance.
Oh yeah.
And we did, and it paid off. And we were, you know, we doubled the numbers the next year. But when I say we, it wasn't me. And truth be known is, I thought I should be run a dealership for many years, and I was a sales manager, but like I showed up and didn't really know what I was doing.
Right.
But I felt like I needed to get out of that and get into a place I was uncomfortable, and I was uncomfortable, terribly uncomfortable in those moments.
Right.
But I learned, and I think that those are big things. So like in my mind, I actually put into practice what I'm talking about is when you start thinking about what you really want out of life, whatever area it might be, there's a part of our brain that says, hey, that's not possible.
Right.
And when you start to say that, like you just have to challenge yourself, is to say anything's possible. And if you want it bad enough, and it's big enough, and it gets you excited, you can be successful in anything you do. And we started with sales and about where to start, and it goes back to what we're talking about. Those moments you're going to be in, you have to really challenge yourself in those moments.
And if you take the word impossible and you make it 2 words, it says I'm possible. That's from Les Brown.
That is Les. He's a good
amazing guy, man. He got me out of some mental things. One time I got arrested for I'll just be honest, I was smoking some weed at a concert. Well, actually, I wasn't even smoking the weed. I got pulled over and somebody had weed in the car and I was the driver. So I took the hit.
I've had a few of those stories.
I ain't no snitch. And I was doing community service at this church. Man, I had to do like 40 hours and they had me outside painting these fences, and I'm already half Mexican, so of course they put me painting the fences. And I remember I was like, man, how do I dig myself out? And this is before I ever got into motivation or even knowing who I was, and I just YouTube motivation. That Les Brown, one of his talks came up, and that was the very first time I heard a motivational speech. And I was like, I think I want to be a speaker one day. It had me all excited. I was out there painting the fences extra fast. I was excited.
He's a passionate man.
Dude. I mean, I got, and then I was excited to do my community service because I had 40 hours to listen to him. I was like, it was just changed my perspective about. It became not a punishment. It was kind of crazy how that can happen. And that's one way. I remember when that happened, my dad was so mad at me because I was already talking about maybe dropping out of school. So I was like 19, and he was like, and just like, and as a parent should be worried, like, what are you going to do? How do you plan on becoming successful? And it was obvious to me that I hadn't shown enough traits prior to that they had faith in me that I was going to follow through with something, because I moved to 3 different high schools. My senior year, I decided to quit track. So, my junior year, I was a state track runner. I mean, I got a ton of, I'll take pictures of all my ribbons. I'll send them to you. I got a ton of blues for hitting them the win in the Open 400 and the 4x4 relay. But my senior year, man, I had this chip on my shoulder that was like, I was tired of getting moved around, and I was like, I finally found my stride in my junior year as far as like my friends and my relationships and my speed, and then I got moved again my senior year, and so I was like, I'm out. I'm going to show you guys what it's like to how I feel right now. You guys keep giving up everywhere we're at.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even let me drive to school. Like, I volunteered to drive the 30 minutes to school every day, and they said no. And I'm not mad at you guys. I love you parents if you're listening, because it made me who I am today. But I had a chip on my shoulder, man. And that, honestly, dude, that probably hurt me a little bit that year. And it taught me that you can't quit. Because anytime this year, I probably had maybe 10 job offers from places. And an example is the Honda store where I get serviced at. I was waiting on an Uber. And this was when Uber was crazy about the mask thing. And so I didn't have a mask. And so I walked into their sales tower. I was like, hey, do you guys have a mask in here? And they're like, well, why? And I explained the story. My car's here for service, blah, 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 blah. And just the way I handle myself, the manager who just started the Honda store said, follow me, I'll get you a mask. Dude sits me in the office and starts interviewing me, right? And I'm like, he's like, well, what are you trying to do? I was like, well, no, I mean, and this is at a point, man, when I was telling you I didn't have the best year in sales, I was down on myself. And it could have been so easy to... And I was thinking about it, not thinking about leaving, but it just like kind of struck my mind. And I remember my senior year of high school, and I was like, man, I quit that track team, and I shouldn't have quit that track team. And this is before I was really even in your year. I was thinking about it, but I was like, there's no way I get a podcast with Mike if I quit my job. There's no way that I was like, I'm going to let down Jeff and Chris again if I quit my job. And those guys are like brothers to me. And I was like, I'm going to surprise my wife. I was like, man, I was like, so as uncomfortable it would be to quit the job, it felt like the easy way out. And I've never quit that track team, man. That's
a great thing to look at. I can tell you that I think there's always a time to level up in a career. I mean, there is. I mean, we live in a world, like my dad retired 46 years after he was there 46 years.
We don't have that.
I think it's a different time. I think it's a different time. So there is a time to level up. And that's a good time.
That wasn't it for me, though. That was way out.
But that's right. So I think there's a time to level up, but that's when you are at your very best.
Right. Not when you're at your worst.
Like, there's been times in your career where, like, that might have been the case, but, like, you're typically not looking when you're at your very best.
No, not at all.
As opposed to... like in times like that's why you even had an open mind to like whether it would be subconscious or consciously, but like that's the time like when you get to the point where you're like, I've got this, this is it, I'm killing it. Now it might be time to do that.
Right.
My one of my best friends, probably he was the best man when I got married many years ago, in my wedding. And we're still best friends today. He just left teaching, and I've been talking to him about getting into sales. He was a teacher, coach, football for, I date us a little bit, but almost 20 years. And he got into sales because it was the right time.
Right, yeah.
And, I've been talking to him about it for probably the last 15 years.
Right. I get so much hate online when I tell people to quit their job and get into sales. It's so funny.
Well, we'll get Russ, somewhere, have him call in or something at some point.
I wasn't thinking about it. If we ever have a guest, I'm probably going to have to get like another one of these because there's only those 2 channels. Wasn't even thinking. But like the 6-channel boys are like, this is like $400 or like $1,300.
We need share and subscribe.
As we get bigger, we'll start stuff like a Patreon where you can... what that is it'll be you can log in, pay $5 a month, and we'll have an extra video every 2 weeks for you. We'll have we'll do a one-on-one call with the platinum members. That'll be a little bit more money to where once a week you can call with one of us and get a platinum phone call for like a half hour, and we'll help you level up your game. That's coming down the road though.
I love it. That part of it, like if there's anything that gets me inspired, it's people like you, Mitch. Like there's been multiple people in my career that I've been able to make some friendships with, but probably more than anything is like the risk. If you could have some impact on somebody in some way, like I remember 2020 was the year I hit the financial goal that I've been writing down for many, many years.
Best year of my life, probably.
And I can tell you the most rewarding thing of that year, at the end of the year, prior to me being a GM for a short time, I helped run multiple dealerships all over the country, all the way out to Boise.
Program. I remember we were
sales. I wrote a sales manual
pretending to be your wife on camera.
Yeah, when we would do video content. Yeah, that was good. That was
the start of our video relationship,
and it was. I do remember that. We were. But when I think about that, like the most rewarding thing that I had that year was not the money I received. Although there's many experiences that I've been able to have in my life because of that, it was the emails and the texts that I got from people that had an incredible year that said, man, I just thought of you and some of the things that I learned from you over this time frame or this boot camp that I was in or something like that. And man, I'm talking about, that reward is so much more than a paycheck that I've received. But I had to get into a position, I had to have all these things that we're talking about to ever get in that position, to have the vehicle to be able to actually do that. So like for me, like it's not, I talk about money, but really that's about the experiences and the work that I actually put in to get there and where I came from. But it's really about what you're able to do to impact others. And so like what we're talking about, like a one-on-one coaching, oh my gosh, that gets me super excited to be able to look in, and I'll learn throughout that process too.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So like when you first started a channel, like I was telling Andy about it, and he was like, "Well, how'd your first video do?" And when you have no followers, 0 channel, and I've asked you not to even share yet on Facebook because I want to wait till we have 5 episodes, till we have the sign up and we look professional, and that way when you share it, people can binge watch. That's why I'm doing, and that's why I haven't even really shared that much on Facebook yet. But we got off our first video 12 subscribers, 60 views. But out of the 60 views, I had probably over 11 people message me. That's a massive rate. I mean, that is, what is 11 divided by 60? Was that 25, 18%? They say on YouTube, you get 1% of people that watch will comment, less than 1%, like 0.5%. And I had 11 people reach out to me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
With 0 promotion.
Yeah.
I mean, people saying that being raised Christian or Catholic, it's been hard for me to want more because I feel like, that I've been told my whole life to just be happy with what you got. And that is true. To get more, you have to be happy with what you've got. But there's plenty of evidence in the Bible that says God's blessings are never ending if you let them be. I had people reach out and say that it's helping them with their new sales. Trevor said it was a great podcast. He just started his new job at State Farm.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a friend who runs a nationwide CBD company. Said his name's Cameron. He said, dude, extremely valuable content. Keep it up.
That's great.
And dude, I've not gotten that with any of my other content. I've not gotten that with much, and that's just like, I mean, this is ground level right now. You know what I'm saying? So the idea that we find a way to really show people and prove to people what we can do, especially when it comes to coaching. Reach out to us, 317-775-5432. We'll help you close your next deal for free. Just call in or text and we will help you close your deal. That's a guarantee. If not, the customer will never want to hear from you again because you tried so hard that it's buy or die around here. I will let you know that it's buy or die around here, and we will help you close your deal. But
it could be just go through the scenario and coach through it.
You don't have to call your customer. We'll just there's only. Okay, so we just talked about goal setting and why I do want to kind of get into sales. And I might even cut this video off and this might be the next video, but